Greetings, everyone. This is a compilation of short stories written by horror writer 1717. The original stories can be found within the description of this video. Field of Screams. I love living in the country, away from all the lights. I've taken over a dozen meteor pictures and should still have time for more. I trudge through waist-high grass, climb into my car, and listen to the radio as the camera automatically takes another picture. Metallica's Enter Sandman plays softly, causing me to smile and close my eyes. When I wake, the full moon is up, bathing the field in an eerie glow. The grass undulates as if waving in the breeze. That's odd. The wind isn't moving the trees. The wave of grass continues steadily towards me, enveloping the car. I stick my head out through the window and watch one of the waves pass right beside me. It stops moving, and out of the grass, I see glowing red eyes. I throw my head back in the window and roll it up, ignoring the sound of something scraping on the door. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I focus on my breathing to avoid a panic attack. In my mirror, I see the mounds of grass moving away. I roll my window back down, lean out, look down, and see no red eyes. I think it's time to go home. My camera sits a mere 4 feet away, but I won't step out of my car. I pull over closer to the camera and reach out through the window, all the while shooting furtive glances down at the grass. Got it. I sling myself back inside, roll up my window, and try to calm down. The longer I sit, the sillier the whole thing seems. It had to be a dream. I fell asleep and dreamt the whole thing. I chuckle at my own stupidity, then turn the car around and drive back over the same tracks I used to get here. I drive out of the field and park beside the house. I head for the back door, exhausted. 2 a.m. is late, even for me. Against my better judgment, I lean down to look at the side of the car door, and I'm surprised to see scrapes on the metal. Must have been a stick or something I brushed against in the field, I tell myself. I head inside, lock the door, plop on the couch, and start looking through the night's pictures. Several of the meteor pictures are nicely framed with the field and trees. As the moon comes up, the stars disappear. This must be where I fell asleep. As I scroll through, I notice the waves in the field. So, I didn't dream that. I enlarge the picture. My breath catches in my throat. Red eyes. I push to the right and see another set of eyes. I zoom back out and count dozens of them. Every hump of grass has glowing red eyes looking out. Oh my God. My spine turns to ice when I hear scraping at the back door. Puzzled. He finally placed the last piece. For years he had worked on this puzzle. He had bought it at a yard sale. The old woman had some sort of the most strange antiques there. Henry had always been a fan of puzzles. He couldn't resist when the woman told him it would take a lifetime to put together. He was surprised and amused when she handed him a large paper bag full of puzzle pieces. He had to dedicate a table only to this puzzle. It was so big. For the longest time, he barely touched it, having no idea what the picture was. Without the box, it was nearly impossible to get started. As time wore on and Henry became less active, The puzzle held more interest to him. He began to make progress on it, and soon had it more than half done. The strange thing was, sometimes it seemed like the picture on the puzzle was different from one day to the next. Still, he kept at it. It had become an obsession now. He had to know what was in the picture. When his wrinkled, arthritic hand put the last piece in, he leaned back to take a look, and a chill ran through him. It was a picture of him as a younger man. He was sitting at that very same table and putting together that very same puzzle. As if it wasn't unnerving enough, over his shoulder, in the window behind him, was a shadowy figure. He leaned closer to the puzzle to get a better look. The figure was robed entirely in black, with a hood covering his face. A skeletal hand held a scythe beside it. Henry's eyes grew wide with fear. For what seemed like an eternity, he sat as still as a tombstone.
This can't be real. There's some logical explanation, but for the life of me, I can't think of it.
Finally, Henry's curiosity devoured him like a starving predator. He slowly turned and looked at the window. 3 days later, the paramedics found his decaying body hunched over, with his head lying on the table. Bodily fluids had pooled on the puzzle, ruining it. They never saw the picture of the man, or the now empty window. Invader. I lay quietly, enveloped in the warm, moist darkness. Whatever lived in this cave before me must have rotted away. The stench is horrible, but this is only a temporary shelter. I dream of a bountiful hunt, the feast afterwards, of my mate at home, and the many mouths I have to feed. My only hope for survival, for feeding my family, is darkness and stealth. I hear sounds, see a sliver of light. The enemy's afoot. I must be on my guard. The enemy is more powerful and numerous than I. Open attack would be suicide. The rumblings fade into the distance. I try to stay alert, silently edging up to the border of my hiding place. I spy the enemy. They are all about me, yet seem more concerned with their own affairs than a single wayward hunter. I creep back, unnoticed, into my place of refuge and wait for my moment of opportunity. Try as I might, my alertness wanes and I tumble into a restless sleep. I'm awakened by a strange presence. Unnatural darkness has befallen me like an early night. I wave in front of my eyes to make sure they're open, but the night is blinding. There is a heaviness, a pressure that comes with it. I retreat back into the furthest corner of my hiding place, but there is no escape. Frozen by fear, the darkness envelops me. I feel its physical presence pressing down on me, crushing me. Can't move. Can't breathe. Driven to mortal desperation, I try to use my weapon, but I'm pinned, immobile. Eyes bulge as this crushing force squeezes the very life out of me. Goodbye, my mate, my children. I go on ahead of you into the unknown. And then it retreats as suddenly as it came. Breath flows through me once more. I am left to wonder at this sudden benevolence. What hellish fates awaits me? Enemy or not, I run with abandon towards the mouth of the cave. The ground shakes beneath me. Gravity itself is upended, and I fall up into the light. I land, poised to fight to the death. I hear the shrill cry of the enemy.
Daddy, squash it.
Hopelessness overtakes me as my hiding place becomes my doom. My cave, my place of refuge, descends upon me, carrying death. Impact! My bodily fluids spray in every direction under the crushing force. My 8 legs curl up in death's final reflex. As the darkness takes me, the last sound I hear is the enemy's cry of victory.
Got it.
Vape. Damn it. I'm out of juice again. Colin walked up to the vending machine and looked over the myriad of tiny bottles showing all different flavors. I've tried all of these. He was about to pick his standard menthol when he noticed one bottle off to the side. The label was smeared and unreadable. He shrugged. What the hell? He pressed F66 and retrieved his bottle. He appended it into his e-cigarette, took his first puff, and sighed out the vapor. Suddenly, he felt very alone and exposed. The streets weren't very busy, and the sidewalks were deserted, yet he sensed that he was being watched. It's just my imagination. He took another drag. I never noticed how many windows there are on the street. He looked up. There must be hundreds. As he stared at the middle-class apartment buildings that surrounded him, another thought reared its ugly head. Anytime, anywhere, some psycho flips out and bang, I'm dead. I'd never even know what hit me. He took another drag. As he started home, glancing up at the windows, he noticed the headlines on the newspaper. Nuclear talks collapse. Oh my God, here it is. The end. Those idiots are going to nuke the world into dust. How futile is life? Everyone's accomplishments, relationships, hopes, and dreams, all for nothing. He took another drag and walked toward home, fighting off depression. As he walked, he heard footsteps behind him. He stopped and turned, and the footsteps stopped too. He stared back into the darkness that was punctuated by the occasional streetlight. Nothing. No one was behind him, which was eerie enough. He started walking again, and the footsteps started again. He turned his head as he walked, but saw no pursuer. He walked faster. The footsteps walked faster. He ran. They ran. His heart was racing when he finally reached his apartment building. He frantically fumbled for his keys, dropping them in the process. He picked them up and desperately searched for the right one. Come on, come on! He no longer heard footsteps. He just knew that someone was there, creeping up on him, reaching out for him, and just about to. There! The lock clicked open. He yanked his keys out, threw himself inside, and kicked the door closed all in one motion. He landed hard on the floor, gasping for breath, and waited for a shadow to pass in front of the door. It never did. He slowly rose and peeked outside. No pursuer. His sense of foreboding hadn't left, but it wasn't as overwhelming as before. A new feeling arose. Pain. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the tiny broken bottle. The label had peeled away from the pieces of broken glass. He held it up to the light to see what flavor it was. Even though the ink was smeared, he could still see the original imprint. It read, "Contents, fear." Open. tormentor sits beside me, mocking me. Come on, Ben. You know you want me. Why don't you just do it? I try to ignore it and work on my tan. The sun helps out by shining down as bright as possible, baking me to a crisp. Ben, it sings songs to me. Why don't you peel off this outer cover and do what we both know you want to do? Water splashes in my face, pulling me out of my delusion. My mind drifts back to this horrible reality. Alone in a life raft, adrift in open water, my companion who speaks so seductively is an unopened can of baked beans. For 3 days, I stared at that can. During my less lucid moments, it mocks me and beguiles me. Whoever loaded the supplies on this life raft was either stupid or sadistic. They packed saltines, peanuts, canned food, but no can opener and no water. The crackers and nuts were gone on day 1. Now my throat feels like it's swelling shut. My stomach has stopped rumbling and sends jolts of pain now. I fear that it is slowly devouring other internal organs, but that's nothing compared to my pounding headache. I feel like I'm going to burst into flames any second now. I don't know if I could drink even if I had water. The irony of dying of thirst in the middle of the ocean throws me into a fit of hysterical laughter. On the inside. On the outside, I only have enough energy for a weak smile. Early morning, day 4, that's when my miracle happened. The most commonplace of all miracles. Water fell from the sky. The first drop hits me on the cheek, and my eyes struggle to open. I'm having another horrid, sadistic dream. It wasn't until I was soaking wet that I made a feeble attempt to open my mouth as wide as I could and allow drop after life-saving drop to slowly fill it. I attempt my first swallow in nearly 2 days. Try as I might, I can't do it. My throat has swollen nearly shut. Breathing has become difficult. Now my mouth is full of water that has begun to drip into my lungs. 4 days ago, I would have just spit the water out. But then, 4 days ago, I was able to swallow. Now I'm so weak, I can't turn my head, and I can barely cough. Even when I do, a mere drop or 2 of water comes out. After 2 feeble attempts, I can't breathe. Whatever energy reserves I have go into one last cough. It barely makes the water in my mouth gurgle. Panic fights exhaustion and loses. The rain comes down in torrents. What I thought was my savior has become my doom. Lying on my back, I look like a fish out of water. My mouth moving, unable to breathe. Slowly suffocate.